Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. This is Patrick Laing, and this is our favorite day of the week. We look forward to it all week long. I personally do because it's the end of the week. Thank God it's Friday, right? But it's also my pleasure to interact with extraordinary guests and unpack this topic that is so important of how do we find and even create and develop and expand certainty in our lives and in our businesses. You know, we've talked about this a lot over the years, and if you Google the word certainty, there are tens of thousands of hits, even just in the last 24 hours in media, online, and so forth. But if you Google the word uncertainty, there's about 10 times as many. It says something about how people are feeling out there. They're worried, they're nervous, they're unsure about what's going to happen. We have rising costs of inflation. We have political stress and strife. We have a lot of uncertainty in our lives. And there are solutions. If you know where to look for them, if you know who to turn to, you can find certainty. My guest today is Samantha Jacobson. She's the founder, the owner of a public relations firm named TenXPR. She has a pretty incredible background, starting out at MTV, going to VH1. She worked with CNN. She did a stint in Los Angeles, where you were on Entertainment. It was Entertainment Tonight. Is that right, Samantha?
I worked on Entertainment Tonight and The Insider. There were two entertainment shows that took up an hour.
And so you abandoned the East Coast, went to the West Coast for a little while, and then you went back, and now you're back on the East Coast. And you started your firm, which we're going to be talking about today, how you got started and what you do for clients, because you have a very unique approach to public relations, to helping companies get their message out and tell their story. That's why I wanted to have you on Finding Certainty, because it's different than what a lot of PR firms are doing. And I think that's why you stand out and why you're growing as quickly as you are. So how we start out the show by sharing two reasons why I've invited this specific guest. And that's the first one, is that you are doing this business in such a way that's turning a lot of heads. It's unique. And I think it's refreshing. The second reason that I wanted to invite you is you have a unique perspective, both in the entertainment industry, in the PR world, as an entrepreneur. You've been around the block a lot, and you've seen it both from the inside and from the outside. And I think that shares a unique perspective that our listeners would resonate with. And there's a lot of people out there wanting to get their story out and not quite sure where to start, right? Maybe they have a limited budget. Maybe they have a limited understanding. I mean, you and I have talked about our company, and I said, I know I want to tell our story better. I'm not quite sure how to get started. And you have the answer to that question. So I think the listeners today are going to be excited to hear what you have to share. So who is Samantha Jacobson? Where did you get started? Maybe tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how did you get into what you do today?
Well, hi, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So about me, how did I get started? I guess I was always interested in the entertainment field. I guess it first started with magazines when I was a kid, and I really wanted to work for magazines. I don't know if you remember Sassy magazine, but I worked there when I was in high school, which was like a huge deal. And then I guess it just kind of evolved. I never knew I wanted to be a TV producer. It kind of just happened to me. Someone that knew me, knew my skills and my communication skills and how I like to do things. And she was like, I see you as a TV producer. Why don't I make some introductions for you? And back then, when I started in TV, it all had to do with who you knew. There was no way in by just sending your resume. And it was by getting an introduction. So I actually, like you said, started at MTV. I was an intern there after I graduated from Syracuse. And to actually be an intern there, you had to get college credit. And I had already graduated. So it was
Hmm.
like, how do I do this? So I actually contacted a professor from Syracuse, and he was like, I'll help you do this. And he wrote a letter for me and said, I will give her college credit if she completes it, and wrote the letter, and MTV accepted it.
That's
So
great.
yeah, so I started there, and then 3 weeks into the program, they hired me to run the program.
Wow. I bet that made you very popular with your friends, right? Working at MTV.
I was like, I don't know, but I guess I'm in charge now.
You
So,
must
but
have,
back then MTV was all fun. I mean, we were in Times Square, and like Eminem was huge, the Backstreet Boys,
oh yeah,
I mean, Britney Spears.
you're
I was,
taking me back now. I mean, you're dating her. You're dating us here, Samantha.
yes, I am.
That's great.
So
I mean,
funny.
we grew up on MTV, right? That's iconic, right?
It
Most
was.
of
It
us.
was like the biggest place in the world, and it was fun, and we learned a lot there. So whether I was carrying tapes or logging things, which all of this is now done electronically, you don't do this
Mhm.
anymore. But yeah, that's where it all started for me. And back then, it was like you worked on a show, you lost your job, they didn't give you health insurance, you were always freelance, and then you had to start looking for another job. So I guess it taught me to hustle, I guess, because you're
Kind
always looking for your next gig.
of like being an actor these days,
Yes,
right? You wake up
yes,
unemployed, just like
yep,
being a salesperson. They say you wake up unemployed. You have to go out
yep,
and hunt your food, right?
yep, totally. So yeah, it taught you to hustle, and I worked my way through show after show after show, and I'd find a new show, and I'd leave the business and start a new job and hate what I was doing and come back again, and it just always went that way. And so I was a TV producer for 20 years. The
Wow,
last show being CBS This Morning with Charlie Rose, Gail King, and Nora O'Donnell in New
incredible.
York. We started that morning show together, all of us. Yes. So,
Well, I bet you have some stories to tell, but you hit a really good point. I mean, when we talk about unpacking this topic of certainty, where how do we create certainty in our lives? Because it's more than finding. It's funny. I joke that we should have named it, something different than just finding certainty, because that sounds a little bit like you stumbled across it, right?
right,
But it's
right.
much more of a proactive, persistent effort, right?
Yes,
You talk
yes,
about hustle, right? That is
yes.
unquestionably, it is paramount. It's central to creating more certainty in your life and in your future. You got to be willing to go after it, right?
Totally.
I always
Totally.
say it's not going to find you when you're sitting on your couch watching Wheel of Fortune eating Doritos, right?
I say the same thing. It's never going to find you in your house with doing
No.
nothing. I always say
Yeah.
that.
I tell
Yeah.
my sales team all the time. We have associates, across the country and clients in all 50 states, but I tell them the number one way to be successful is get up and get out.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed what happens if you just get off your butt and go out and go to work, right?
Yeah.
They're talking to
Yeah.
people.
Well, that's actually in like this culture of working from home. I think everybody should get dressed every morning like you're going somewhere. Because
I agree.
otherwise, if you're in your pajamas, like, what's going to happen?
Yeah,
You're not taking it as seriously as maybe the other person on the other side,
that's
It
right.
also puts you in that mindset.
Admittedly, I like wearing sweats on the bottom half just because they're more comfortable.
Me
But
too. But I showered and I look okay.
that's right.
Today I'm actually dressed
to that point though, I think even if you're working from home, you're a remote worker, I think it's really valuable to get out of the house, right? To go to a lunch meeting or go to a networking event or
totally.
attend the Chamber of Commerce, BNI, Rotary, something like that. One, because it's good for the body to get out and get some fresh air and some, vitamin D, but you're going to make connections. And what's amazing when you're really proactively going after it, right? Getting dressed, getting showered, getting out of the house, it creates these ripple effects and they mushroom, right? It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. But if you are always at home, stuck at the computer, you'll do business, but I don't think you'll ever do as much as if you do get out of the house, right?
Yep. Yep.
Would you agree?
I agree with that. I totally agree. However, I do think that I I stat calls so you don't even know that you're in the house anymore. At the point, like you're constantly meeting new people and networking. I mean,
Yep.
that's the idea as well. As
So
I mean, I
true.
work from home, but I don't even know I'm home.
So besides the hustle, what was another lesson you learned working in as a producer for 20 years? I mean, that's quite the track record.
You know what's so funny? It's like I worked in as a producer for 20 years, and when I left because let me back up. I was at CBS This Morning for 6.5 years. I had a baby. I woke up.
Mm.
Donald Trump was running for president. School shootings were at an all-time high. For me, as a person, for my own sanity, I just didn't want to read about any of it on my phone anymore. So it was time to leave a newsroom. So the natural transition for someone like me is to go into PR. So at first it was hard to get a job to get out because I feel like people don't understand, what do TV producers do? And in reality, we just make things happen. We know how to move pieces, how to move things forward, how to make these pieces connect so we can get a product out of it. And yeah, I mean, those are life skills, but I didn't know how they would translate. The only thing definitely made sense was like becoming PR, because who knows better how to pitch than somebody that's been on the other side for 20 years. So
That's right.
I made the transition. I was super lucky. I got a job working for a brand from home, which was amazing. I'd say my biggest coup there was the cover of Washington Post magazine with a 7-page feature, which was very exciting.
I bet.
And then I lost my job due to COVID, which was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to get out there, figure out what my skills were that were valuable, and make something for myself, which I wish I would have figured out a lot sooner.
That's very interesting. It's interesting to me that you say that, because my story is very similar, right? I've worked for other companies for years and made them millions of dollars. Lost a job just prior to COVID starting. And, when you're in your 50s and you're interviewing with people in their 20s and they look at you like, you could be my parent, right? There is ageism that goes on out there, right?
100%. I think they just look at your resume like you worked at these many places. Yeah,
they're like, whoa, I don't want to manage you.
exactly. Yeah.
And so it was an impetus for me to decide to start my consulting firm, which we've been in business 5 years now. We've growing quickly because I finally said, I can do this better than anybody I've worked for, right? Let's create the kind of company we want to work for.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to find it with other organizations and always falling short. And, I would never go back. I say the same thing. I wish I'd done it 10 years ago. Right.
I wish it would have happened to me sooner and I would have figured it out sooner too. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the universe goes to work and helps us
Totally.
make our minds up. Right. Yeah. So, what was it that prompted you to leave East Coast, go to West Coast? That's a big move.
So again, I'm one of those people, I wake up and I'm like, okay, time to change everything. I'm sick of New York. I don't want to be here. So my family's all East Coast and they were like, no way, you're not going. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get me a job and I'm going to get them to move me out there. So I went out there. I got introduced to somebody. Next thing I know, they had an offer on the table and they were moving me to the West Coast. So I was out there for 6 years. And then woke up one day and was like, I want to go home. And no one believed I was coming home because who comes back from California? Nobody.
Right.
But I was like, you know what? I miss my family and this is the time to do it if I'm going to go back. So I packed up my stuff. I called my parents. I said, meet me at the airport. They thought I was kidding. I'm like, no, really, my stuff is on a truck. You need to come get me. And I thought, I'll sit on my mother's couch for the next, till whenever. And then my phone started ringing. People being like, where are you? What are you doing? I got a job for you. So it just picked up right away and off my mother's couch within a week and back to New York City it was.
Well, family has a lot of draw to it, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Even though we like to create some space, and you went out and had that adventure, and LA is completely different than New York. It's a whole nother animal.
Totally.
Pros and cons, there's good and bad, but I think we always want to come home eventually.
Right? Right? For me, that's what I needed. So yeah,
For sure.
back to New York. So
So
yeah.
my senior VP of sales, his name is Andy Tenney. He's been with us now for about a year now, and a little bit less, but he gets job offers all the time. I mean, somebody just yesterday offered him a job where they said, I will pay for the nursing home, and if you'll run it, and I'll give you 50% ownership in it. I mean, it's an amazing offer, right? A multi-million-dollar offer if you wanted to do it. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he said, I'm not leaving. He said, I love what we're doing, but it
Aw.
was a really good offer that just came across his plate. And he gets those on about a weekly basis, but this was a pretty good one.
Wow.
But it says something about how we're growing and what we're doing. You know, when we started our company, I really built the kind of company I always wanted to work for. Right? We wanted a culture that was faith-based and family-focused and positive and apolitical, et cetera, et cetera. We wanted our reps. They're all remote. They're all remote salespeople. They're all independent contractors, but we wanted them to be able to earn unlimited income potential just through introductions. That's all they do. They open doors to companies for us, and they get paid, and we do all the legwork. And so they can have really great quality of life, really great income.
Nice.
And then we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to do more than just make income. We wanted to not just do business, but do good. And so we're attracting a lot of really great people to our company because of those three pillars: that culture and the income and just the contribution we're trying to make. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's fun, right? It's fun building something that's your own and making it the way you wanted it to be, right? The things that you have always longed for in a career. So it's hard though, right? It's a big transition and it's a lot of work. And so question for you, when you came back from LA to New York, or you're in New Jersey, I know, in New York, but did you go right into starting your business, or did you go to work for someone else first? Is that when you went to work for?
I worked for Gail King's. She had own show, which is Oprah's Network. I worked there. I had worked for TV Guide, and then I went to OWN, and then Gail got the CBS This Morning show. She took her executive producer and me to the new show, and then I was on CBS This Morning for 6.5 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it was still several years working back on the East Coast before you decided to start TenXPR.
Yeah.
So did you start thinking about it, or was it kind of a sudden move? Was it something you'd been
I lost my job and I was like, what do I do? And friends were encouraging me to start my own business. And I was like, I don't know how to even get clients. I don't know how to do anything. And I was really lucky. I had friends making introductions for me, and it kind of just started from there. It was like, oh, meet this person, they need help. Meet this person, they need help. And then you're like, oh my God. I would say that
I could do this. Right.
Yeah. A lot of it was based on referral for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's how our business grew. I mean, our whole business actually has grown from referrals. And in fact, our entire team, I don't think we have a single person that wasn't referred by another team member.
Wow.
We have associates coast to coast now. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You make a good point, I think, that you said, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to find clients. I don't know how to do the bookkeeping. I don't know how to do all the things that a business owner has to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm learning every day, right?
Me
Things
too.
that I didn't know
it's
how to do.
Curve. Yep.
But the secret to it is to surround yourself by good people, whether they're employees and team members, right? Mentors, professionals. Yeah. I mean, a great accountant, a great attorney, a great marketing expert, right? I mean, I have
systems helping you set up your systems and how, yeah, totally. Yep.
Yeah. I'm a big believer. I told you this before the show of hiring professionals to do what professionals do and will always do better than you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I try to do my own PR. Just like I could try to finish my own basement or put in my own sprinklers, but I'm probably going to have a big puddle in the back corner of my yard, right?
Yes.
um, I learned a long time ago, it might take some money, but it is so much worth it. Now, one of the challenges, I'll put a plug here. I had a guest on my show a few weeks back. His name is Bijal Parma, and he owns a company named Be Epic Virtual Assistants, right? And his whole thing, I love his model because it's different than most, just like yours is different than most. But most of those virtual assistant companies, he calls them vital assistants, which I think is great. But he says most of them charge a big upfront fee, a big monthly cost, and they pay the VAs out of that. He doesn't do that. He charges a very small fee monthly, and you pay the VAs directly. You pay them their hourly wage. They get all of it.
That's
And they're
nice.
so loyal to him and so excited about what they're doing. And they're really good. But it's another example of where you hire a professional. It might take a little bit of investment, and it might be a stretch to do it, especially if you're a small business. But you think later, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner, right?
Totally.
I'm sure your customers say the same thing. They're like, man, why didn't I do this 10 years ago, right?
So what I do is called earned media. So earned media means that it's true journalism, that if a reporter wants to talk to the person, the subject matter, the CEO, or whoever, it's because they're an expert in their field and they're going to add value or knowledge to their piece or online article that, helps tell the story they're trying to tell. Now, earned media means that I'm not paying reporters to talk to anybody. There's no money that exchanges hands. It's not a sponsored post. It's not an advertisement. It's the real deal. It's real journalism. So in that sense, like what I do is not guaranteed per se, but if you know what you're doing and you know how to pitch, you should have success.
Well, with any endeavor, Samantha, you have to have certain principles and certain factors in line, right? You talked about systems. I'm a big systems manager. If you implement systems, they're cookie cutter, they're turnkey. Doesn't matter who you have running the system will keep things consistent.
Yep.
And, and yet there's different ways to do it, right? I really like your model because it's so much more credible to have an earned media presence or an earned shout out, an earned, spotlight or whatever it is, than paying it for it. It's like there's a company out there that I've seen recently that is intriguing to me. You may have heard of it. It's called Cameo.
Oh yeah. Where you talk to celebrities and you pay them, and
you pay them $50 to give you a shout out, or some of them are a lot more than that. Some are thousands, depending on who they are. But well, it's kind of fun, and it'd be kind of cool to have Glenn Close or somebody give you a shout out. The fact that you had to pay for it, I think, kind of devalues it. And to my understanding, they even want their watermark on the video, so people know that you paid for it, right? And so, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I mean, it's an intriguing idea, and there's a lot of celebrities getting involved in it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people doing it, but I don't know. What's your thought on that kind of idea?
Cameo is more for I guess if you want to have Glenn Close say happy birthday to your wife or something like that.
Not so much for business, right?
For gag gifts, I guess, I never thought about somebody using it to endorse themselves, but I guess you could, as long as it doesn't have that watermark giving it away that you paid for it. But
yeah, I wondered about that because some of them say a business promotion and others don't. It's like they don't want to promote.
I've never even looked. I'll have to look. That's so funny.
Yeah. I just stumbled across that recently, but I thought I have mixed emotions about paid endorsements, right? About paying for media.
Paid media is not the same at all. To be featured in TechCrunch, to be featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, none of that will ever be pay to play. So, I mean, to get that caliber, you have to do the real thing.
You have to be the real deal. So I talk about how they're there has to be specific principles and factors in play to qualify for that kind of endorsement, right?
Yes. Yes.
We are up against our break, which I tell you, this hour goes by quickly.
You're right, it does.
We're going to take a quick break, let you listen to our sponsors, and you take a look at them, they'll take a look at you. And when we come back, let's talk about what those factors are. How do you earn that kind of endorsement, that not the paid kind, the unpaid or unearned, the kind that Samantha does, right? How do you do that?
Yeah.
And there's some pieces that have to exist. You have to have the right partner. You have to have systems. You have to be qualified, right? Yeah. Nobody wants to endorse somebody who's not doing good work. And so we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. But I like where we're headed with this, Samantha. I appreciate you being on Finding Certainty today. I think this is a very interesting topic to a lot of listeners out there. And we'll get into more about how you're doing and how it's different, why it works. So don't go away. We're speaking with Samantha from TenXPR, and we'll be right back. All right, we're clear. We're on the YouTube channel. I continue to record, okay, so we get a little bit of behind the scenes before and after. But so you're doing a good job, Samantha. Good job.
Thank you.
So does anyone call you Sam, or are you strict with Samantha?
Yes. No, they call me Sam.
Just don't call me Pat. That's all I ask. I think I've been I went by Pat for years, actually, all through high school. I think it was about when that Saturday Night Live skit came out. It's Pat, and then I'm going by Patrick. I don't know. That doesn't make me homophobic or anything, but I think I was about when I started changing. I've looked back on it because people ask me, well, have you ever gone by Pat? I said, yeah, I did. And then one day I didn't. And I think that was around where
That's so funny. That was
it was. Oh, yeah. And Dana Carvey. I loved the church lady.
Yes. Yeah.
They have some classic
I think
shows.
they brought her back recently for something.
Did they?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's amazing. As you look back over your experiences, is there someone that you worked with or an experience that you had that stands out, maybe one of your favorites?
The favorite person I've met and worked with?
Yeah.
Oh, I would have to say
favorite. Yeah,
Stevie
I know that.
Nicks.
Who's that?
Stevie Nicks.
Really?
I was super excited to meet Stevie Nicks. I guess I was just always a fan. Most people I never fanned out about, but for her, I think she's just was so cool.
Was she? That's cool. My favorite was probably Donnie Wahlberg.
He's very nice too. He's very normal, totally normal.
I'll tell you a funny story when we come back from the break about Donnie Wahlberg, and he. Because it's a good example, I think, of kind of what we're talking about, right? Being different than your competition, right? And
yeah, totally.
But we're coming back, so here we go.
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
All right, we're back. Thanks for listening to us here, being with us here on Finding Certainty. It's an honor to have you. I know you could be doing lots of things with your time. Appreciate you spending your morning with us. Or if you're listening to it after the fact, appreciate you spending your drive or your run or whatever you might be doing. Maybe you're walking your dog this morning and trying to find more certainty. But we're visiting with Samantha Jacobson. She is the founder, owner of a PR firm named TenXPR, headquartered on the East Coast, Newark, New Jersey, New York area, and turning a lot of heads with how she's doing business. She's doing it differently than a lot of her competition. While we were on our break, we were talking about some of the people we've known that stood out in our careers. She said Stevie Nicks, which I think that would be pretty cool to meet Stevie Nicks. I said one of my favorite celebrities that I've met is Donnie Wahlberg, and I'll give him a shout out. Maybe he'll hear this someday. I'll tell you the story. It's because it illustrates a point I think that everyone should remember if you want to be more successful in whatever you do, right? This is years and years ago. I grew up in Utah. One year I was between jobs, and I took a 2-week job driving during the Sundance Film Festival. And I grew up in Utah. I'd never gone up to the festival. I didn't realize how many A-listers actually go to the Sundance Film Festival each year. And I met everybody you could think of. I mean, I drove Tobey Maguire and Pamela Anderson and Glenn Close and John Leguizamo, Jeff Daniels. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? Well, one day I was asked to do a pickup, and it was Donnie Wahlberg and his wife. And I took him to dinner that night. And real nice. Gave me $100 tip. I mean, I was impressed. That's more than most people did. And took him back, and he said, tomorrow we're going to go visit these gifting houses. They're, you show up and they give you a bunch of free swag, right? There was a Levi Strauss house and a Sorel Boots house and a Oakley Glasses house or whatever. He said, why don't you spend the whole day with us? And we'll go hit all these houses. We'd love to have you with us. And he was just really gracious, really accommodating. I said, you got to call the supervisor and let him know, but I'm sure they let you. And so I did that. The next day, I went with them and to half a dozen houses, and I'd sit in the car, read my book or something while they were inside, and they'd come out with these big bags of stuff, right? And they'd cram it in the back of this car. I was driving this big old Audi A8 type. It was a Volkswagen Phaeton is the car, but it looks kind of like an Audi A8. And one time he brought me out lunch. It was just really nice. He's one of those that would just chat with you while you're driving, and others would be
totally normal. He's a regular guy.
Yeah, incredible, right? He was just great.
Yeah, unaffected. So
we get to the end though, and we get back to their condo, and I swear the car was like dragging on the side on the road with sparks flying behind because of how much stuff was in the back of this trunk, right? And we get there, and he says to his wife, do you want any of this shit? Excuse the French. And she says, I wanted that digital camera. And she finds the camera. He says, well, I was going to keep those glasses. He goes, Patrick, you want the rest of this? And I said, are you kidding me? He goes, no, I don't want any of it. He goes, you can just have it. And he gave me $100 tip again. And literally I drove away with this trunk full of about $6,000 worth of free stuff. They kept 2 of the things, and he still gave me $100 tip. And so I bring it up because it's an example of somebody who I think I love Don. I'm a big fan of Blue Bloods and everything, but I've always remembered him because he did what he didn't have to do. He went the extra mile, right? He was personable. He was real. He was authentic. He was generous. Those are all principles that apply in any business. And I think they apply in yours too. The more I get to know you and what you're doing all those things.
Gail King's the same way. Gail King is the most amazing person. She will surprise you. She's so thoughtful and goes above and beyond for all of the staff, and not just one person, but the entire staff at CBS This Morning. She has always been like that. She's such a giver. And yeah, same thing like Donnie.
Really? That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So let's get into TenXPR.
Sure.
And you said you do earned media.
Yes. And I like to say I do what's called broadcast PR because I feel like most publicists don't know how to book on TV. Just because it's a different beast. It's the names don't match who you're supposed to be pitching and that kind of stuff. So I like to say I do what's called broadcast PR, which is national, local, and streaming. But I also still do full PR, which includes print, online, meaning digital, and podcasts as well. So my clients are everywhere from Time Magazine to the Today Show to Good Morning America to Fox and Friends to Fox Business, USA Today, things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me, when you started out your company, did you know what you wanted to do and how you wanted to do it, or has it evolved over time? Did you have
It's
a
definitely evolved.
okay?
I
Did
started
you have
as
a vision? I'm assuming you had a vision for it, right? You had a
Well, I
general
started doing
idea.
what was called full PR for people. But then I realized what made me special was that I knew how to book on TV. And that's what really
100%.
made me different. So I actually coined the phrase broadcast PR because there's no one out there that does it. I thought it really explained what I can do. And yeah, I mean, that's really what makes me different. There's probably like three of us that can say that we're experts in booking on TV for earned media. So
Interesting. So, what do most PR companies do, if I may?
a lot of them
To
do
talk about the differentiation.
online and print, and then a lot of people do podcasts separately too. There's people that just do podcasts because that's such a targeted niche. People are specifically going to listen to that. Yeah, I mean, so I like to say I do broadcast PR, but I still know how to do. It's the same theory that applies to everything in media. So if I know how to do it, why wouldn't I do all of it for my clients? So that's why I still do all of it. But being able to do broadcast PR definitely differentiates me from other publicists.
I'm sure it does. Well, that's what's sexy, right? That's what people, I think, are more attracted to, the thought of being on TV or being interviewed on a show. I mean, what a great credibility piece. What a great.
Well, TV has power. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look at all the people that go on Shark Tank that actually don't even get a deal, but their businesses still blow up.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
they say an average person watches at least 4 hours a day of TV, which is a lot.
That's a lot. It's to your Shark Tank guest, comment. I think it's almost better not to get a deal from them in many cases, because you have to give up quite a bit, right? Obviously, there's the value of their partnerships and so forth, but I know companies that have gone on to do billions of dollars of business because of that one, 2-minute slot or 5-minute slot, and and yet they get to retain all their earnings. They didn't have to share any of it. It's an interesting insight.
Totally. Totally, but that also
happens.
shows how much power TV has. I mean, it's on a different network. It's not, it's on cable. It's not even on like regular TV. So
yeah,
TV has a lot of.
I didn't know this when I started with Voice America, because I came about as a host because I was a guest on a show first. I was talking about what we're doing to help nonprofits. We have a division called the Certainty Partners Program that's designed to help nonprofits raise funding. We don't charge them for our help. We can raise, any nonprofit out there who needs help, we can raise unlimited funding for you at no cost to you. So it's a pretty strong offer. And that's why I was invited to be a guest. When I was done, the host, Frank Hellring, he said, you'd be pretty good at this. He said, have you ever thought about live radio? And I said, no, I listen to it all the time. I had never thought about it. Right. And he said, yeah. He said, if I could get you a meeting with the general manager, would you be interested? I said, sure, I'll hear him out.
Wow.
And that's how it came about. I had a half-hour meeting scheduled with him. We ended up talking for 2 hours about what I would do a show on. And I said, I think this topic of certainty is needed. And he agreed. They gave me a 13-week pilot. Then I signed a 1-year contract, and I just signed my 3rd year just last week. So, but it's funny how things come about that you didn't expect, right?
Well, that's like the golden rule in Hollywood. Say yes to everything. You never know who's listening, and you never know where it's going to lead you. So that's why I always tell my clients, do local, do streaming, do it all. Say yes, because you never know who's listening.
It's a really good lesson.
Yep.
So how do you do it? How do you, besides the fact that you have these 20 years of experience as a producer, when you talk to a customer and you say, we do broadcast PR, we can get you on TV, on radio, on print, we can do this for you. What's what's your secret sauce? How do without giving away all your secrets, give us a glimpse of
Sure.
how it works,
So,
right?
listen, there's two ways to get in the media. One is your call to action, that feature piece that you want people to know about you. Like, what is that we're pushing, which we write, we pitch. And then the other way is what's going on in the world that we can insert you and your expertise into the news, and reporters will want to talk to you and use you as the expert in their pieces, and you get to promote your business anyway. So I like to have both those trains going at the same time for all my clients. And then the third thing is reporters are always looking for stuff. So I get emails saying, hey, do you have anybody that can answer these questions for me? And those are great ways to get your business plugged as well, because it could be Newsweek, it could be USA Today, who knows? There's also reporters every day are looking for experts to help tell their stories. So,
Well, they're looking for content. They've got to fill it up every day, right? Fill it up.
yes, they do.
There's a lot of content out there. They're obviously filtering through and trying to find good content. They don't always accomplish that, right? But
And a lot of people are reading on their phones these days. They aren't getting the newspapers. They're not buying the magazines. They're reading it quick content on their phones. So it has to be produced. And like I said, reporters are always looking for experts to help them tell their stories.
they do.
Yeah.
So, do you mind walking us through the process when you meet a customer? What is your how
Sure.
does the agreement work? What are the steps to getting a
Sure.
customer going?
So I always ask for 3 months to start because it could take a minute to get started. It all depends on what your expertise is, what's going on in the world, and how do we fit those two together. When we first start, we have a meeting, an onboarding meeting, where we discuss like all the different places that. Whether is it being an entrepreneur, is it being a solo entrepreneur, is it being the head of a department that your skills are in. But I want to find those different places that we can fit you in and make sure that we can get you coverage in. So we go through that process. Then I like to find news stories because I'm sure everybody at home watches the news and they see something on the news and they're like, I could give more information than that person's giving, or I know better than that person's giving. So I like to find those stories. And then I ask my clients to give me 4 to 6 things. If you're chosen to talk on this topic, what would you say? So I get those talking points for them. I write these pitches, and then it's kind of off to the races, and it's tweaking and testing from there. If it's not working, is it the headline that's not right? Do we need a newsier topic? Is there something else that we can replace? And kind of testing to see what works. But the fastest way to get on TV or in any media is to jump in the news cycle and figure out what's going on and that your expertise fits into.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you, when you work with a new customer, you have a fee schedule? They pay up front? Can they pay monthly? Is there any sort of rev share options? How does that work?
So I have 2 options. Clients can pay monthly, or they can pay a lump sum, which will discounted if they pay up front.
Okay.
It all has to be paid prior to services rendered. That is
Sure.
how it usually works. What was the other question?
How long does it take typically when a customer comes on with you before you start seeing traction?
So it's so crazy. I mean, it could be the same day. It could be 2
Really?
weeks. It could be, I can give you an example. I had a client who, they were talking about breast cancer and how it was disproportionate for African-American women to, Caucasian women and how it affects them. And it was going into October, which was breast cancer awareness. And I was like, we got to go right now because everyone else's plans their breast cancer awareness. For us to get in the coverage, we need to go right now. It was like 2 days before our October started. So
Wow.
I quickly wrote the pitch. Stats and data do really well because it helps tell stories and it's real.
Mm-hmm.
So they had statistics that were startling that like 50%, that African American women are 50% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. So I started with those stats that are very staggering. within 2 hours, I had an email from the New York Times wanting to talk to them. A
Really?
business email. Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
it was,
impressive.
yeah. I had a client that started last month. I usually tell my clients we see 2 to 4 placements a month just to protect myself. Because it can happen that way, and it all has to do with what we're talking about and what's going on in the world. I had a client that started last month, and in their first month, we had 21 placements.
Wow.
So, yeah, it totally depends on what we're talking about, what the news cycle is, and what your expertise are, and kind of finding that groove within it. So,
I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very serendipitous, right? You start making these placements, and that leads to additional placements, and it leads to additional opportunities, maybe a TED
yep.
Talk or a book opportunity. Or have you seen that happen with your
I had
clients?
someone on ABC San Francisco last week, and then NBC Sacramento emailed him directly saying, "We saw it. We'd like to have you on this weekend." So it was like within
Wow.
12 hours, he had another hit. Yes, we see that all the time. Or this is different. I had someone do a local hit in Arizona. It was actually a human interest story. So we did somebody that worked for them because they were staffing the stadiums. They were staffing the Taylor Swift concert. I said, find me somebody that couldn't get Taylor Swift tickets that is working for you so they can go see the show. So they found me someone. I contacted local Arizona markets, and they decided to do the piece and they met with the girl who was then working for this company to go see the Taylor Swift. They did the actual piece. That piece aired 63 times in 3 days across the country.
Wow, that's
Crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny personal story along that same line. I can afford to buy a ticket to a concert, right? I can afford to go to a Raiders game if I want to. But I was at a job fair, this is a year or two ago, and I was there to find clients, right? To talk to customers about our consulting business. And I met this guy who said he was recruiting people to work security at Allegiant Stadium. And he said, it's a great job. He said, you're on call. You don't have to work if you don't want to. You can work once a year if you want. And I said, and he was telling me some of the concerts coming up in some of the shows. He said, if you come work for us, he said, like I said, you work once a year if you want. And he said, and I found out that Elton John was coming to do a concert it wasn't a public concert. It was for Cisco and their employees. Right? I mean, where else would you see Elton John? He's retired, right?
Can I tell you that's so funny? My son's obsessed with him. And I just told him,
I love him.
A friend of mine saw Elton John 2 days ago. He's like, he's retired. I'm like, he played. I think it was a Time Magazine event.
Yeah. I mean, he's still doing but they're private events, right? They're corporate events.
Private event, totally.
So I literally signed up for this job so I could go and watch the Elton John concert. And instead of paying $100, $200, $400 to go, I actually got paid $100. Right? Yeah, I've been to a Raiders. I've done it 4 or 5 times in the last year plus. I went to a Raiders Kansas City game, stood right behind the team.
I was going to say, did you have a good seat?
Oh, I was right on the field, right, like literally 10 feet away from Patrick Mahomes, and I saw who was it? Billy Joel and Sting. So these are sold out concerts, right?
Totally.
And I just saw George Strait just recently. And on both cases, I was right at the front, on the front row. I talked to the guy right there. I said, how much did these tickets cost you, by the way? They were like $2,000, right, for the front row. And I got paid $100 to stand there and watch the show. I have to, tell people where to sit and some things like that while I do it. But it's kind of my outlet. Talking about getting out of the house, it forces me to
get out of the house. Totally.
That's my little secret. Don't tell anybody now that we broadcasted it all over the world, right? Yeah. So yeah, I just think your business is really fascinating, right? I'm interested, as I said, about talking to you about using you this coming year. We've been going through a rebranding of the company. We started just I started as a solopreneur. I've since brought on associates across the country. We have 7 divisions. We have, about 30 different offerings. They're all designed to help companies make more and keep more. And, we're what's called an efficiency firm or a profit consulting firm. But we're now catching up with our branding, our marketing. We just created a new logo. We're doing a new website. We've got a phenomenal graphic design team doing our work. I'm very excited about it. But I think, and I told you this when we first spoke, I want to get those things done before we start.
Which makes sense.
Putting us out there, right? Getting us
Yeah.
more,
you have to have it all aligned before you have tons of eyeballs looking.
And business is going good. We grew 700% last year, and I think we'll do the same this year. And we won't do that forever, but it's going really well.
That's awesome.
If you had to give someone a bit of advice, just as we are almost to the end of the show, I tell you the hour flies by, but what advice would you give a customer who is considering, besides come work with me, right? What advice would you give if you had some free advice for someone who's wanting to tell their story better? What would you say?
Well, first of all, don't do paid media because that never works and it looks paid, and don't do it. So don't buy those covers that you get in your email and your spam account. Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
No, there is nothing better than earned media because it gives you the social proof you're looking for, and it's real and it links back to you and it's genuine. You can tell the difference. So what advice, that would be my best advice is don't do the paid, no matter how much spam you get about it. It is not the same deal. People look at you differently. They respect your expertise differently. And you can really say once you have it, as seen on ABC or Fox or what, those are the real deal. You have the social proof to prove it.
Right. I would take it a step further. Sometimes we do things out of desperation or because we think it's a good idea that actually hurt us more than help us. I believe using paid media can actually damage your reputation because it looks like they must not be good enough to earn it, so they had to pay for it. They had to buy 100%.
It. 100%.
I avoid it like the plague, right? Because I would say this to anybody listening, be careful because you do things like that can actually hurt you rather than help you. And that's obviously not what you were going for.
100%. 100%.
I'm a big fan of what you're doing, Samantha.
Thank you.
How long have you had TenXPR? When did you start it?
So 4 years now. So it's been 4 years. It's been amazing. And like I said, I'm so happy I did it, and we're growing. And every day I meet new experts and people in their fields. And that's the other thing is a lot of people always ask me, is there a certain field you work in? And I'm like, no, I like experts all over the map because nobody wants to hear the same story from me every day. So I love people. I have apps, I have doctors, I have lawyers, I have, crypto. I've got, things all over the place. I have a psychologist. I have a matchmaker. I have,
Nice.
Completely all over the place. But that's better because nobody wants to hear the same thing from me. And then my clients aren't competing for the same spot. That's the other thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Speaking of matchmakers, I just watched Fiddler on the Roof the other night. It's a classic, right?
Sure is.
Well, how do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you and have a conversation? How does that work?
Sure. So my website is TenXPR.com, and my email is Samantha@TenXPR.com. Again, it's TenXPR.com. Happy to discuss with anyone. If you feel you're an expert in your field and you're ready to do media, I'd love to chat with you.
And do you do any sort of promotion, any holiday special? Is there any benefit to mentioning certainty if they call you? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. I should have talked to you about this before.
Sure. But I could definitely give a discount if they mentioned certainty on the call. For sure. If they heard me here, I will give a discount.
Fantastic. I appreciate
Awesome.
it. I always ask. I'm a veteran, right? We're a veteran-owned company, and I always ask, is there a veteran discount? And I
Of
used to not
course.
do that, right? I used to, in fact, I never applied for benefits, veterans benefits, because I always thought there were other veterans out there who needed them more. And finally, this old double Purple Heart recipient, he got after me. He said, "Those are benefits that you earned." He
Yeah.
said, he really got after me. He said, "You're actually um, disrespecting the service by not benefiting from it and not taking advantage of those benefits." I thought that's an interesting thought. Anyway. So now when I go to Home Depot, I ask him for my veteran discount. But so anyway, our whole show is about helping create more certainty in our lives, and I think one of the most important ways to do that is to hire experts like you. We talked about hustle. We talked about using systems. We talked about not spending money to buy paid media that's just going to be a waste of your time. We talked about a lot of different things that can help. But ultimately, it's about being willing and courageous enough to invest in yourself. And it costs money to make money, right? Nothing is free in life, but just like a virtual assistant, just like starting your own business, just like hiring someone like Samantha, you look back and most people will say, "I wish I'd done this sooner." It's man, if I'd done this 10 years ago, imagine where I'd be today, right? So
Yeah.
I would just advise you, if you're listening, to reach out to Sam, reach out to Samantha, and she does a free consultation. She'll show you what she can do for you, how it works, what it costs.
Yeah.
You think about one appearance on a television program, and the ripple effects that could cause would more than pay for the investment and the cost of working with her, and maybe many times over. And where it could lead you, who knows, right? So we hope you all have a fantastic holiday season. Sam, thanks for being on the call today and the show. And let's schedule a time and continue the conversation. I like to understand it better myself and how we can do it. We're almost ready, where I think this next year we can most definitely do this, and I'm interested. So maybe I'll be your first customer for 2025. But
I love it. I'm excited.
All right. Well, happy holidays, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening. Remember, certainty is out there. You can find it. We can help. Our certainty partners like Samantha at TenXPR can help as well. And we'd be honored to assist you in your journey, whatever that means. Wherever you want to go, let's help you get there. And let's not waste any more time. You're worth it. So take care. We'll talk to you next Friday. Thanks so much. Sam?
You.
We're signing off.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Very fun.
All right, we're clear. So the YouTube channel, I always say there's a little bit extra on the YouTube video. So This will go out on Voice America on the audio version. But is there anything else you'd want to add? Anything else that we didn't think of? Maybe an example, or we covered a lot, right? It's amazing.
We did cover a lot. We did. Yeah. And you're right. The hour went super fast.
Yeah. Everybody always thinks we're going to talk for a whole hour. How is that going to be possible?
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. It was about a year and a half ago, July of last year, and I had a guest who tried logging on. She's actually a television personality. She's really well known. She's won a lot of awards, but at the last minute, she could not get on through Zoom, which is where we used to do the shows. Now we're doing them with Riverside. But so with no notice, right, about 2 minutes notice, I had to do a monologue for the whole hour.
Oh, my God.
And I hadn't even prepared. I hadn't thought about what to say. So I just ended up talking about certainty, and I shared 3 principles for creating certainty in our life. You can go back and listen to it if you want to, but it flowed really well. Unfortunately, I didn't screw it up too bad. But I enjoyed it so much, where most people would probably, most people say that they'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. I mean, most people are terrified of, of public speaking.
Never heard
But
that saying.
I think it was Jay Leno that said that. But I really enjoyed it. And so in November, I did another one. I did a monologue at Thanksgiving about gratitude. And I thought, man, I really enjoy the interviews, but I always have a lot to say too. And I've had a lot of experience throughout my life. And so I decided in January to start doing a monologue the first Friday of each month. And I'm going through the alphabet. I started with accountability and then balance and composure, discipline, endurance. Let's see, faith, giving, humility, integrity, I think was one, joy, kindness. And this month I talked about the topic of light. L is for light. Good holiday topic, right?
That is worked out perfect.
Yeah. And so I've done 12 monologues so far, 14 if you count the other two, but 12 this year.
Wow.
And in this next year, I'm going to continue with the alphabet. And I think eventually I'll put them into a book. I can take all the monologues and transcribe them and make a chapter from each one, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be good. Maybe 2 books. Maybe I'll do volume 1, volume 2. But isn't it funny how things come about that we weren't planning on?
Totally.
Right? Your business, my business, this radio show, these monologues, even parenthood. I married a widow with 3 children, and I went from 0 to 4 in a year. I wasn't planning on that, but it was the best thing that ever happened, right? And I think another principle, and it applies in your business, is if you want to really achieve your potential, keep your eyes open, right? Take the blinders off and be willing to take opportunities. You said say yes to everything.
That's what I always tell my clients. So like, what I don't want to do, I'm like, trust me, do it. You never know who's watching. It's like the number one rule in Hollywood.
Doesn't matter if it's
to everything. You don't know where it's going to lead.
That doesn't matter if it's the Sweet Potato Festival in Topeka, Kansas, or wherever. Go do it.
Jay Leno could be there. You know what I mean?
So I think that's one of the best things you said, and I completely agree. Right? I believe if you open your eyes, take your blinders off, just look up. I talked about in my monologue this month about light, about just opening your eyes, look up, reach up, be aware. You'll be amazed what you see and what will come to you, what just lands in your path. I saw this video years ago. It's on YouTube. You can still find it if you search. I think it says look up. Do a YouTube search, but it's about this guy who was on a corner looking at his phone, and this really pretty girl walked right past him. And he compares that, or actually, no, this is how it is. First, he comes to a corner. He's looking for directions. He's looking up. This pretty girl comes walking up to him, and he stops her and asks her for directions. And the next thing you see them sitting at a cafe, drinking coffee and visiting. Then you see them going on a date. Then you see them getting married and having a baby and buying a house. This whole a whole life experience of 40 or 50 years. And he's eventually an old man with grandchildren. And then it flips back and it shows him at that same intersection, but he's staring at his phone.
Oh, yeah.
And she walks right past him, and his entire life misses him, passes him by. It is very poignant. I should find you the link and I'll send it to you. But it was, I've always remembered that story, talking about opening your eyes, right, and looking up. It's a really good reminder, and it's obviously integral to your business. You know where to look, and you know how to help your customers put themselves in that path. So.
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah.
Well, I could probably talk your ear off all day, so I'll stop talking, but really enjoyed having you.
Enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm excited about what you're doing. We've got some great things happening. I was just approached by a company that wants to take my show national and put it in every major market. Another production company that wants to put me on a lot of venues, a lot of not just the live TV. Obviously, this is a live show, but then it gets broadcast and uploaded to Pandora and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all these different venues. But I think I have the chops, and I think we have the topic to take this and go a long ways with it. And so, we'll see. I'm learning as I go, but
that's awesome. Congrats on that. That's amazing.
Yeah, great things are happening. So congratulations on your success and on your business. Hope you have a fantastic holiday season.
Yes, you too.
And let's definitely continue the conversation. And,
for sure. You let me know when you guys are ready to reopen the conversation when you have all your ducks in a row.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy holidays.
You as well.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the certainty experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.